Good Saturday morning to everybody, and welcome to our Saturday Smart or our Saturday Smart Training Series. My name is John Dehart. I'm hoping everybody's having a very wonderful Saturday morning as we get started here. We have changed webinar formats. We were continuing to have issues with our old webinar provider, and so we have went over to the standard, I guess the industry standard of the GoToWebinar, GoToMeeting platform. So thanks everybody for coming on to this webinar this morning. This webinar is actually going to be on closing, but before we got there, I wanted to just really walk through the system of duplication. And you've heard me say before that if we're going to build a large group in our family vacation network business, what are we doing? And really what we're going to do is we're going to lead by example a large group of people. And how do you get to a large group? You've got to start with line 2 to do a few simple things consistently over a period of time. That's what we do. If we stand back and we take a macro view of what we're doing, that's what we're doing. And those few simple things that we do, folks, is what I like to call use, share, teach. And so we use the product. You've got to be a product of the product. And the good news with the Family Vacation Network is, we're not asking you to take a juice or rub skin cream on yourself or take a vitamin. In using our product, we're asking you to go on vacation. We're asking you to visit the Westgate Resorts. And the more resorts you can visit, the better off you're going to be, because it is that experience that transfers out there. So we want you to use the product. Second, we want you to share the product and the business opportunity. And so we've made it very simple to share the product with. We've got our first night free on me cards. If you're working offline, if you're working online, we've got our business, our booking engine. And then if you're sharing the business, that all starts with a cycle of sharing the FVN movie, FVNmovie.com, sharing the opportunity through that. And so if you look at what we do, there's really the 4 steps in sharing the business. Is we have the invitation, the presentation, communication, and participation. So the invitation comes with inviting somebody to look at FVN, both the product and opportunity. I mean, obviously, we don't have an opportunity without the fantastic product that we sell. And so we invite somebody to do that. Then we would send them the presentation. You see it there on the screen, the FVNmovie.com. We're going to send them the presentation. So that's number 2. Number 3 then is communication. We want to communicate with them. And so that requires follow-up. And we've described follow-up as doing what you had said you'd do in the time frame that you said you would do it. So you set a time to follow up. You call somebody back at that time. Remember, the fortune's in the follow-up. But communication doesn't stop there. We also want to involve our other team members at that point and use a 3-way phone call. And during that 3-way phone call, they'll get to hear, from somebody else, different life experience, somebody else they can relate to, somebody that's having success in our business. And hopefully they will be able to find that common denominator. And that person in your upline, that team member, is going to, ask them for participation, what they like best. That's really a great thing. Can they see themselves vacation more? Can they see themselves building a business like this? So I think it's important to remember that frequently in our business, it takes several exposures. And so while the first invitation is inviting them to look at the FVNmovie.com, and then we're following up, and then we do a 3-way phone call, they may not be ready to go. So then we may want to put them on our Thursday night webinar. We may want to invite them, and so the process really starts all over. So again, if they're not quite ready to go, we then invite them again to a different presentation. So that can be a webinar, that can be our conference call, that can be a live meeting, that can be a training session like we're doing, another exposure to our business. We set up a time to follow up, right? And then we communicate again. So that cycle repeats itself until we really get to that point of participation where they're ready to go. And sometimes, folks, you'll go through this 3, 4, 5 times, and you'll kind of get to that place that you really don't know how to move the person forward from there, right? I mean, and so that's where I like to use what I call the consultant close, because you'll reach that place where you've exposed them several times. You don't really know how to move them forward. And so what I like to do is use what I call the consultant close. Now, when we talk about closing in our business, I have I don't think it's a unique perspective on closing for the network marketer. I think most top network marketers have the same feeling about closing as I do, and that is this. If we're talking about the business opportunity, I really don't close people into our business opportunity. And you may say, well, this whole webinar is on closing, John, and I get that. You'll see the distinction here in just a minute. But I think it's important to understand the philosophy on why I don't close somebody into our business. And that's real simple. They're not buying a product here. You know, if they're getting in the business, they are, but really what they're buying is the business opportunity, the chance to build an FBN business. That means when they sign on the dotted line, my work's not done. My work has just begun. I mean, that's when things start to move forward, because I'm really taking responsibility for them and saying, hey, I'm going to mentor you. And so, you know, closing somebody that really doesn't want to do our business, you may have seen in my newsletter, a mentor of mine long ago, his name's Mark Aronelli, he's famous in this industry, taught me that a man convinced against his will, man mean used simultaneously for men or woman, man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still, you know. And so closing them into our business, what I'm going to have to do next week, if I do that and they're not really interested in building the business, now I got to try and convince them to work. And then the week after that and the week after that, and honestly, folks, there's not enough hours in the day to put up with that kind of aggravation. The other thing is that our business is really about building relationships. And so if I slam somebody into our business that's not ready to build our business or doesn't want to build our business, I have significantly damaged that relationship to the point that they may not even be a customer of ours anymore. They may not even want to travel, you know, to our Westgate Results. So I really can do damage by closing somebody into the business. And I think my way of looking at this is similar to most of the top leaders in this industry. I was trained by them. That's where it all came from. So, but there is that point where you've taken somebody through the cycle of duplication. They've had multiple exposures to our business. They've been on multiple three-way phone calls, and there's that point of, okay, they're either going to move forward or they're not. And so what I like to do is take off the sales hat, if you will, the network marketer hat, and put on what I call the consulting hat. And what I like to use is called the consulting close. And so if I'm working with Bob, and I finally we get to that point, and I say, Bob, you know, it seems to me like you like our business, and you know, and you like the idea of vacationing more. You see everything's there. You know, you like the company. You love our product. You think you can make some money in the comp plan. You think the timing's right, and I think you understand our system can duplicate, and you can build a big business. And they're probably going to answer affirmative to all those things. And I said, you know, Bob, let me do this. Let me ask you a couple questions. If you were to do the Family Vacation Network business, how much money do you need to be making at the end of a year for this to be worth your time? I mean, what's really the number that you're looking for? And here's the thing. I want him to answer that number. I don't want to plant a number into his head. So, you know, they're going to think about this. They're going to be quiet. I don't want to say, because here's the thing. You know, for me, if I can't make 10 grand a month, I'm really not interested. I mean, that's just me, but that's me. Understand, you know, Bob's got a whole different set of life experiences. He's got a whole different set of expectations. For Bob, it may be $500 a month, you know, and so if that's the case, we want to get a real number that Bob is comfortable with, that he needs to be making, again, needs to be making for this business to be worth his while. And so that's the first number I get out, and I write that number down. Then the second question is, okay, Bob, how, if I get you want to make, and let's say Bob wants to make $10,000 a month, okay? And I say to him, okay, Bob, that's serious income. Let's ask this. How many hours per week can you spend building your FBN business, either part-time or full-time? And Bob's going to come back and say, most likely, well, I've got a full-time job, and so I'm going to have to do this part-time. And so here's the thing. I need to get a number from Bob on how many hours per week that he can work, and a couple of thoughts on that. So number one, it's always part-time. This is not a spare time business. Nobody I know of has any spare time. They can fill their calendar up. So this is part-time. This is something that if somebody's going to treat this as a business, and I recommend treating our business as a business, you can treat it as a hobby. Just important to recognize hobbies normally cost you money. They don't make you money, right? Very rarely do they ever. So treat it as a business. And so it's really, really critical that Bob pencils this in or inks this in, that he says to me, well, you know, I can put in 20 hours a week part-time, or I can put in 15 hours a week part-time. And understanding that I need to get that number from Bob. Now, here's the thing. We're going to introduce a concept right now called posture. And it is an intangible in our business that is really the difference between massive success and mediocrity. And folks, I cannot say that clearly enough to you. It really is this big of a deal. Posture is the way you carry yourself. Posture is the way you value your time. Because, you know, every now and then, and it'll happen 1 out of 10 times when you're sponsoring somebody into our business, they're going to say something, I need to be making $10,000 a month. And when you ask them, you know, well, how many hours can you be working per week building your FVN business? They're going to say, well, I can do it an hour a week. And folks, here's the thing. I believe personally that the source of all upset, people getting upset about things, is unfulfilled expectations. So it's important that we set the correct expectation. So unfulfilled expectations is somebody expects X, they end up with Y, they ask Y, and they're upset about it, right? They didn't get what they wanted, what they thought they were going to get, and that's what causes upset. And so if we've set the expectation with Bob that he can make 10 grand a month working 1 hour a week, Bob's going to be upset in a year, you know, if he even makes it, because here's the reality. That is completely unrealistic. And as a matter of fact, and I've gotten these sorts of replies frequently. Somebody will do this, you know, if you're out there recruiting and really going after the business, you're going to get this every now and then. And it's really important that you posture up, what I call posture up. And what I mean by that is we just shut the book, boom, and we say, well, Bob, when you find that business, give me a call, because I can always find an extra hour a week to make 10 grand a month. And here's the thing, folks. 10 grand a month is serious full-time income in America today. That puts you in the top 2% of all money earners nationwide. And if somebody thinks they're going to make serious full-time income on really spare time effort, not even part-time, spare time effort, we have got to get a realistic view of what our business is, because this is a business. And it's really almost disrespectful to you, because that's somebody that's not taking what we're doing seriously. So it's important that you posture up. I cannot say it strongly enough. The difference between massive success in our business and mediocrity is posture. And so it's important that we do that, and we bring Bob back into reality, if you will, and say, Bob, you know, that's just not going to happen. And maybe that's all Bob's got. Well, at that point, then Bob, we want to sell Bob a vacation, so everything changes. Hopefully, we can bring him back in reality. So let's say that happened, or that Bob came into reality to begin with and said, you know, I've got 20 hours a week. Perfect. We can work with 20 hours a week. Question number 3 then is, Bob, how many hours, how long are you willing to work X number of hours to make Y dollars? So how long are you willing to work 20 hours a week to make $10,000 a month? Because we've got to understand, this is a business. We've got to give time. We've got to give time for our efforts to mature. It's like compounding interest. He's not going to be making 10 grand a month next week. It's going to take time for his business to grow and for that network to grow of people that are out there using FVN products, sharing FVN products and opportunity, and teaching others how to do that. That's what our business model is, right? And so we really want to come up with a number. Now, here's the thing again here. This is all about me, this number. Because this number is, do I want to invest my time into Bob? I know that if Bob gets going, I'm going to commit a lot of time to Bob to get Bob going. meaning I'm going to be spending a lot of time training Bob, doing three-way phone calls. I'm making an investment into Bob. And if I'm going to do that, I'm looking for at least a one-year commitment, because it's going to take time for efforts to mature. And folks, when you look at that, you look at the average business doesn't turn a profit. Now that's a profit. That's not 10 grand a month. That's a profit. That's out of the red into the black for 3 years. And we're talking about 1 year to be making $10,000 a month. You know what? That's pretty realistic, and then that's doable. And you compare that to, you know, going to med school or becoming a lawyer and the amount of education to make serious full-time income at 10 grand a month. 1 year is the commitment that I'm looking for. So once I've got how much money do you need to be making, how many hours per week can you spend to get to that money, and how long are you willing to work those many hours a week to get to that amount of money, then I'm ready to go to number 4, which is this. Bob, if we can show you a simple game plan that you can make $10,000 a month working 20 hours a week over the course of the next year, are you ready to get started with FVN? And folks, it's that simple. You know, at that point, he's ready to make a decision. So we've walked him down the consultant. We've got him thinking about this becoming a business and being a real business for him. How many hours he's going to need to spend, and, you know, how much time he's going to need to invest in this over a period of time, and got his first goal out there, which is, or his first long-term goal, I should say, which is getting to $10,000 a month. Obviously, the first short-term goal is to get his vacations paid for, a lifetime of free vacations, to get his 3 people. So we've got him on AutoShip, and we get his 3 people. That should be the first goal. Let's get your AutoShip for free. Let's make this a free business for you that you're maintaining every month. Folks, you think about that, and the magnitude of that is absolutely huge. So this takes us then to the next phase of getting started. So what I'm looking for then is, if Bob's looking to make 10 grand a month, he needs to be serious about his investment getting into our business, right? So it's real simple. Bob needs a global traveler pack. Why? Because use the product, share the business, and teach others how to do that. It's a business of duplication. So the why is really twofold. Number 1, Bob needs to be going and seeing Westgate properties right away, and more than one. And so he needs the global traveler pack. He needs to see how cool our program is. Number 2, this is a business of duplication. This is a follow the leader business. People will ask you, and you have to be able to look them straight in the eye and say, I came in with the global traveler pack. They're going to ask you, how did you get started? And when you can look them in the eye and say, I came into the global traveler, here's why. It's a business of duplication. People are going to do what you do, and I wanted to start vacationing. And this was the best deal in town for $999. So we want Bob to purchase the pack that's consistent with his goals. And if he wants to make 10 grand a month over a year, that's the pack that's consistent with his goals. If you've got somebody that said, you know what, I want to be making $500 a month, then you know what, maybe they just need the adventure, you know, the $500, the $499 adventure pack, or maybe even just, you know, the getaway package. I don't recommend that one to start with. I recommend the bigger packs. I mean, obviously, the more we can get people to our programs, this is a transfer of emotion. When they get to our resorts, they see it. It becomes a full-color panoramic view, right? I mean, they experience it. That experience comes back, and this is a transfer of emotion. They're able to share that experience with others, transfer that emotion. So it's important that we get people to our resorts. So I want people to purchase packs that are consistent with their goals. Now, once they've gotten started, once you've got how much money, how many hours, how long, are you ready to go, let's get your pack, you know what? I write all those things down. Because inevitably, folks, I want to use this as an accountability sheet. And that sheet will come in very handy. 3 weeks down the road, 3 months down the road, when I'm talking to Bob, and Bob's in the middle of the build, he's been at it for 3 months, he's making some money but not near $10,000 a month. Well, here's the reason. Compounding interest, right? It's that penny doubled for 30 days. On day 10, it doesn't look all that great yet, right? And so when we're talking to Bob, I want to be able to pull that sheet out and say, Bob, you know, first of all, are we doing what we said we would do? You said you'd put in 20 hours. How many hours did you get in last week? And typically, or not typically, but frequently, I should say, what's going to come up is the story. Well, and then there's the whole story. You know, we had the kids' soccer, we had this, we had that, and you know, as one of my old mentors, Jim Rohn, used to say, Bob, they make these numbers in the box small so that a story doesn't fit in there. I just need the number, right? How many hours, Bob? You know, I got room for 2 digits here. Was it 20 like we talked about? No, it was more like 2. Well, Bob, that's a problem. You know, this is part-time. What would happen on your 40-hour week job if you showed up for 4 hours last week? You know, the same ratio as you did our business. Well, they'd fire you, right? I mean, that's the reality of it. And so, Bob, you just fired yourself. Good news is we can rehire you right now. Let's recommit. So that's the first thing. Number 2, it's important, you know, from that accountability sheet to also be able to say, Bob, you know, you're working 20 hours, but remember, this is compounding interest. We were going to get at this thing for a year. We're still way too mature in this thing to be making, you know, long-term decisions as to the effectiveness of our business. Do we need to make mid-course corrections? Maybe. Do we need to come at the plan a little bit differently? Maybe. That's a smart business person. But, folks, I think it's important to realize that when you leave LAX flying to Honolulu on that 5-hour flight, guess what? You are off course 95% of the time. They are constantly making mid-course corrections flying high, right? We're going to have to do the same thing. And this accountability sheet, folks, is going to help you do it. So with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. My name is John Dehart. I'm your Executive Director of Sales Marketing and Field Development. I love these trainings. This is meat and potato stuff, folks. If you use this consultant close and you use the accountability sheet, you will double your income. I promise you, just like the email that went out said. So thank you for that. Folks, join us tomorrow night. We've got a major announcement call tomorrow. Our Executive Director of Operations, Rob Hucazelli, is going to be on the call and giving you some incredible updates, folks. We leave the launch pad tomorrow. These are going to be announcements that are going to change FVN forever in a positive way. So you want to be on that call. Folks, get everybody you possibly can to attend that call. These announcements are going to be huge. They're going to impact your business in a dramatic way. So that's tomorrow night, Sunday night, 9:30 Eastern. You'll get an e-card on that. It's our typical conference call number. So make sure you plug into that, 9:30 Eastern. That's 6:30 Pacific. And then we've got our Tuesday night business overview call and our Thursday business webinar. Make sure you go to fvnwebinar.com. If you're on here, you already know how to do that, but spread that message to your team so that they can get signed up for both our Thursday webinar and our Saturday webinar. They have different links, and they'll get weekly reminders as far as that goes too, so that they remember the webinar and they can invite people to it. So with that, thank you so much for joining us on this webinar. Again, John Dehart with you. Thanks for giving up a piece of your Saturday morning with me, and goodbye for now.